Since January 20 of this year, the world has undergone a rapid transformation and it is in a state of flux as we have never known it before. And you are aware that President Trump has changed the world as we know it. I would like to ask the two of you what it portends. What is the current state of the world which obtains now as a result of Trump coming to office? And what it portends for us, what is the current state, and what is the prognosis in the short term, medium term, and maybe long term, if you wish.
President Trump is proving to be a disruptor. When he came, he had said that I will finish the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. And to his credit, he did try to start some kind of a negotiation process and work towards ceasefire, etc. But the war is still going on. And but I think a credit should be given to him that at least he started talking about ending the war, and that led to a major change in the European view, and they also started talking about the ceasefire. But unfortunately, the war is nowhere coming to an end. In fact, the situation has become even far more complex. So I think the one trend which is visible is that the war is not ending anytime soon, and which means there will continue to be turbulence. And he himself has talked about the possibilities of a third world war coming from him, and not once but repeatedly. Coming from him, this is a major, wake-up call, because the world today is adrift. There's so many conflicts, violence that is going on, and we don't know how to end it. And multilateralism is totally dysfunctional. And in fact, Trump himself is disrupting that multilateralism itself because he has withdrawn from WTO and Paris climate, etc., some of the leading problems. But I think the second major disruption that he has done is on the disrupting the world trading system. WTO rules are gone forever. The way he has put duties on international trade, uh, nobody knows what is going to happen. And as you know, trade is connected with growth, with jobs, employment, and so many other things. And nobody today is clear as to what is going to happen. And this is going to uh, create major disruptions and several disturbances. We are seeing how the stock markets have become extremely volatile. Investment decisions are no longer being taken. And we are essentially in dark about trade, and which will affect the global growth. And today people are talking about the chance of a recession. The third thing I think which Trump has done is he has questioned the very basis of the American society itself. Today, America is highly polarized. People Americans themselves are accusing him of becoming dictatorial. Now, this is unheard of. America, which was a paragon of democracy, and today democracy is being questioned. And his style of functioning, the way he takes decisions, the way he advertises his executive orders, etc. So, if America becomes uncertain and about itself, and America is today behaving with friends and foes in a manner which nobody understands the logic behind it, then I think we are in deep uncertainty. So today we are in a major, in uncharted territory, and nobody knows how the situation will develop. It will be foolhardy to predict anything that is going on. But essentially, the stability is now missing. And what we had been saying, the world order is changing, but actually it has now changed.
You see, as the director has said, the world had started developing and working on the system of globalization. So irrespective of the problems which globalization caused, it also had so many plus points to it because it allowed the international trade, it allowed, the countries which were not so well endowed as far as the capital and other capacities were concerned to be able to increase their capacity of earning. Now, with all this disruption which is going to come in, and also the disruption has come so abruptly. You see, the world economy they can withstand these shocks if they are applied in a very gradual fashion. But the abrupt way in which he has, started in a very arbitrary fashion, and just giving 2 days notice or 10 days notice, that is precisely how the economy doesn't work. And instability which has been caused, it has got such a, what do you call, terrible effect all over. Because you see, the chains which were established over last, say, 15 to 20 years, with a hope that those chains will lost. So suddenly all of them have become meaningless. So you see, it is something everybody is groping in the dark as to how to go further beyond that. Because the globalization did one very, it brought in chains of people coming in. So if you abruptly break the chains, it will be affecting the production. And the narrative which he is trying to propagate and say that he is doing all this to get back manufacturing in America. So that is questionable because you see, the manufacturing requires so many ingredients, and major one out of that is a cheap labor. So you see, to imagine that Americans would be able to provide that cheap labor is something which is not imaginable. So to get back that type of a, what do you call, manufacturing capacities which were prevalent in America 40 years ago is a pipe dream. And another point is that he's trying to blame the whole world, but he's also got to acknowledge how did China become the major manufacturing hub. It was because they were allowed entry into WTO by the Americans themselves. So once they went into this, they fully exploited it. And the Americans as well as the Europeans were all absolutely party to that. Now, when they're abruptly ending it, of course, China will be affected, but the effect will also be far reaching to other countries. For example, India, we always say that we are not so much dependent on the foreign trade, which again itself requires to be reassessed. But if the whole world economy starts tanking, then India is also going to be affected. Our growth rate, which is reached 6.5, I'm not very sure with the present prevalent circumstances, it is not going to go south. So these are the various problems which are going to arise in a very, very big way.
Right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. So we'll speak about India in a bit, but you mentioned about the Russia-Ukraine conflict, multilateral institutions, and General Sani, sir, you spoke about sudden disruptions, and you know Trump's dream of making America great again. And of course, so what I'd like to ask you, sir, there are two, I'll take the lead from these two, from your statements, and ask you two specific questions regarding the future of the transatlantic alliance. And also, as you mentioned that, General Sani mentioned, sir, that it was United States which got China into WTO, and now it has imposed 104% tariffs on China, sir. In this, and yesterday you spoke about the nuclear winter that we are going to be facing, sir, as part of the trade sanctions. Specifically on China, this fight between United States and China, what it portends for the world, and the future of transatlantic alliance as we have known it, sir. What do you foresee in the coming days?
So let's take the transatlantic alliance first. It's unprecedented. The strains are unprecedented. We had at the VIF several European delegations in the last few days, and they are saying that we are now compelled to look at European security by ourselves. It won't happen immediately, but now their trust on America is shattered and broken. So today we have transatlantic alliance may not break, and probably it will reinvent itself. But Trump has certainly given it a very big shock. And we don't know how they will now find the resources The Europeans will find the resources to build their own structure, but that is the way they are going. But another interesting point that comes out is that in the rebuilding of the transatlantic alliance, what they are doing is they are coming back to now the task of territorial defense, which is the core mission of transatlantic alliance till the Warsaw Pact disappeared, and then they went into so many other areas. But now they are coming back to that. So they'll have to reinvent it, which means Europe will have to find resources, and Germany is rearming. They are looking for 800 billion euro resources to militarize. They have the capabilities, but they are very scattered. And the Europeans today are not in it because they have enjoyed peace at the expense of America by not investing into defense for a very long time now. So Europe is going to undergo a major change as a result of this. So transatlantic alliance will probably reinvent itself, but it will be not the kind of strong security alliance that it used to be. Coming to the China. Now, this what Trump has done is, we were talking about whether there would be a G2 and whether China and US they will do a deal, etc. But I think the chances of that have receded now, because the trade war is now in a full earnest, and trade war means it is probably even more significant than the military conflict that might possibly have arisen between the two. Uh, the Chinese have not held back. They have imposed duties on the US. And US has targeted China, not through China also, but by targeting Vietnam, by targeting Mexico and many other countries where Chinese investment is there. So this is now a beggar thy neighbor war that has started. And even if they want to pull back now, it will be very difficult for them. So I think because of that, the Chinese there could be an alternative alignments, alternative supply chains that might come into force, as he was also hinting. So we are going to see I think both countries are going to harm themselves by this. But China is a rising power, so they will look for opportunities in this one. US is a declining power, trying to retrieve its thing. Now let's see, it's only time will tell who will succeed, etc. But one, I think, silver lining for India would be because if this kind of a system begins to break down, then it also, while gives you a lot of pain in the beginning, but it also gives you a lot of chances to orient yourself. And so our foreign policy, as defense policy, security alliance relationships, etc., all this will have to be restructured. So that's a great opportunity, because today we are the fifth largest economy, soon to become fourth and then third, etc. So we have some capabilities, but it's not going to be easy.
You see, as we were discussing just now, the transatlantic alliances themselves, if supposing what we could find out in the recent interaction we have had with the European countries is the utter breaking of the trust between the two countries, which is, see, something which was unimaginable. No, even if some repairing is done, I don't think that trust will come back. So their idea that they would be able to build, rearm themselves, again, as director was saying, have got again very dangerous sort of precedents, because the Germans rearming themselves itself, it gives you certain images which are not very, very sort of this thing. So whether they would be able to make their organization as potent, purely European one, is something which requires to be seen. And how long will they take? And one of the very important European country chap told us, he said that earlier on there was a feeling amongst them that they would buy their weapons from the Americans. But now they have resolved that they will not buy any weapon system from America, and they'll manufacture it themselves. That itself is going to be something which is going to be very difficult. But the other point which comes in, that their relationship with Russia. So would this relationship be strained in perpetuity, or would there be a possibility of a thaw coming between the relations between Russia and the European countries? No, that is something to be watched, because quite a few of the uh, imagined fears they have got from Russia, probably they require to be addressed, but there doesn't appear to be any sense of trying to repair their relation with Russia. So that itself is very, very sort of a, fearsome, because they were talking about the Baltic nations and the insecurity of Baltic nations, meaning thereby that they feel that Russia will start gobbling up these small countries one by one. So that somehow is something very difficult to digest, because the Russians, by even fighting with Ukraine, have strained their resources. So one doesn't feel that they will start anything major against any other country except Ukraine, and Ukraine has got some history behind it. So this sort of a struggle and this type of a fight and diversion of the what do you call money, and their complete breaking off with Russia itself is going to cost them hell of a lot. You see their energy and other things which were already built up. So that is something fearsome. And now the Chinese, again coming into this and their own problems with China and what China is going to do is again something required to be watched. So it's a very unstable world in which lots of presumptions which were made and a lot of assessments which one thought were almost permanent have completely been shattered. So it's a very new world. We have to look at it definitely.
So, sir, coming now to India, what is your assessment of India's position in the present flux which is undergoing? Has our policy of strategic autonomy served us well? Uh, and what would be your roadmap or prescription? What are the current challenges, and what should we be doing? If you would, I would like you to point out the existing gaps, and what do we need to do to actually not only cope with the present world order, but also to stay ahead of the curves.
So I think India's policy of strategic autonomy has paid us good dividends. We took a kind of a neutral position on Russia-Ukraine war. Uh, but now I think everybody accepts that, and we said that the war should end through dialogue and diplomacy. This position is now well accepted. And India's image is very high. That is one. Secondly, India has a huge market potential. Now, when the reorientation of supply chains happens and due to tariffs, a lot of trade diversions will happen. I think India is well placed to take advantage of that opportunity. Thirdly, today, many of these countries which are involved in this, Russia, China, not so much the US, but certainly Europeans, they are all suffering demographic decline. Now, demography comes out as a very big advantage for India. And then on the fourth is the technology side. I think India has demonstrated in the last few years that at least some of these technologies, particularly digital and so on, these can be used and they are being used for economic growth and for welfare. So our digital infrastructure that we have built is standing us in good stead, and that has enhanced India's image. And the way we handled COVID also has. So I think these some positive things, and of course 6.5% growth, 7% growth that we have registered. So these are the advantages that we have, and that will help us navigate the current turbulence. Our policies are well balanced. We are a part of so many groupings, etc. And we have not been aggressive. And this Vasudev Kutumbakam, which means taking everyone together, the voice and projecting the voice of Global South. So these are, I think, some good aspects of our foreign policy, which make us acceptable in all on all sides. Having said that, these advantages we have to use to our benefit. Whether we can do that or no will depend many external factors. Now, if there is a global recession, obviously India is going to be impacted, and we may not be spared. Our economic growth might come down. So that's, I think, one challenge that we have. The external, this breakdown of the economy that is taking place. The second, I think, a big challenge is the toxic geopolitics that we see all around. and how to navigate that, because pressures will come on India from all sides to take this person's side, that person's side. It's not going to be that easy, in particular at a time when the multilateral institutions are becoming less effective. UN Security Council doesn't work. So, how to navigate the geopolitics will be the second third. And the third is that China, Pakistan, and their nexus, plus the unstable situation around our neighborhood, the problems in the Indo-Pacific, particularly the Indian Ocean, the militarization of space, the challenges that we have in cyber security and the climate change and so on. These are very big, huge challenges, and which require a lot of capacity. So we have to build that capacity, which takes time. It is not that easy, and it requires a broader approach, starting from education, starting from finding investing in R&D. Because today it is the R&D and technology, original technologies that you produce and you can commercialize. That's what gives you strength. If we are always the user of technologies which others have produced, we'll be users. So I think we'll have to pay a lot of attention on R&D and technology development, and that I think is an important point. And amongst the various regions that we mentioned and which are very important for India, whether it is Indo-Pacific or whether it is South Asia or the Middle East or etc. One, I think, region which which are beginning to focus but not enough attention has been given is the polar regions. Today, the geopolitics of polar regions is also very important. Polar regions are not something which are of course distant from us, but we have been involved with them for many years. But what happens in the polar regions impacts our economy, our climate, our military capabilities, and so many other things. So we'll have to lift and give higher priority to polar regions and treat it as at par with something like Indo-Pacific, etc., for us to really remain important in 2047, etc. So we have to start doing. So there are many challenges like that, but I just thought I'd mention a few of them.
We have to be very nimble as far as negotiating the choppy waters of today is concerned. And basically, as was brought out by the director, that the fact that we had a strategic autonomy, I think that is how we are in a much better position. Because both sides, in a way, look at us not with a hostile sort of a attitude. But there are problems which, as you mentioned, which have to be negotiated, we have to be prepared. It will not be an easy sort of a passage through these turbulent times. And the people have to be prepared for it. We can't have the business as usual. You see, the economy has to be managed in these terrible, the instability. The manufacturing has to be managed. The supply chains have to be redone. So there is a lot of work if we have to continue towards the given goal of 2047. Everybody has to pitch in into this particular thing. Nothing can be taken for granted. And innovations are required. It will not come in easily. So I think it's a difficult time ahead. We should be prepared. We should prepare ourselves strategically, economically, geopolitically for the tough times to come. But we have placed well. Fortunately, we have placed ourselves well, but now it is a requirement of a very concerted effort, very matured effort to achieve what we had set ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So it's been a really fruitful discussion, sir. We have discussed at a bird's eye level, and we hope to continue this conversation, getting into specific topics and narrowing our discussion. And we hope that our viewers benefit from the wisdom of the VIFs. Thank you very much.
Thank